Story 1. The Whispering House. My best friend, Mark, and I loved exploring abandoned places. We were obsessed with the thrill, the mystery, the possibility of encountering something unexplainable. That's how we ended up at the old Grayson house. The house had been abandoned for decades. People in town whispered about it, claiming it was haunted, that strange noises could be heard at night. We laughed it off. Ghost stories were just that. Stories. Or so we thought. We arrived just before dusk, armed with flashlights and a camera. The house loomed before us, its windows shattered, the front door barely hanging on its hinges. As we stepped inside, a chill ran down my spine. The air was heavy, thick with dust and something else. Something rotten. We wandered through the rooms, taking pictures, laughing, trying to scare each other. Then we heard it. A whisper. Faint, but unmistakable. "Get out." We froze. Mark's face drained of color. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I nodded, my blood turning to ice. The whisper came again, this time closer. "Get out." We spun around, our flashlights shaking. The house was empty, completely empty. Yet the whispers continued, surrounding us. Then the floor beneath Mark creaked violently, and he screamed as something yanked him backward into the darkness. I lunged after him, grabbing his arm and pulling with all my strength. It felt like someone, was trying to drag him into the shadows. I screamed, kicking wildly, and finally whatever had him let go. We ran. We didn't stop until we were outside, gasping for breath. Mark's arm had deep scratches, as if fingernails had dug into his skin. We never spoke about what happened that night. We never went back. But sometimes, late at night, I hear whispers outside my window, and they sound just like the ones from the Grayson house. Story 2. The Man in the Closet. It started with little things. My clothes would be slightly rearranged, drawers left open when I knew I had closed them, and that eerie feeling of being watched when I was alone in my apartment. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I was just being careless. Maybe I was imagining things. Then one night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to a soft creaking sound. My bedroom door was slightly ajar, even though I always closed it before sleeping. My heart pounded as I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. I scanned the room but saw nothing unusual. Just as I was about to turn the light off, I noticed something. My closet door was open by an inch. I stared at it, frozen. I was certain I had closed it before going to bed. My pulse was hammering in my ears as I slowly got up and walked towards it. Every step felt like I was getting closer to something I didn't want to see. With trembling fingers, I grabbed the handle and yanked the door open. Nothing. Just clothes hanging silently, a few shoes scattered at the bottom. I let out a nervous laugh and scolded myself for being paranoid. I closed the closet firmly, checking twice to make sure it was shut, and went back to bed. The next morning, I woke up feeling uneasy. Something felt off. As I got dressed for work, I reached into my closet for a shirt, and my breath caught in my throat. My clothes were rearranged. Not just shifted around, but completely out of order. Someone had been in there. That night, I set up my phone to record. I placed it on my desk, facing the closet, and went to bed, trying to act like everything was normal. But I barely slept. Every sound, every shadow made my skin crawl. When I checked my phone the next morning, my stomach dropped. Around 2:45 a.m., the closet door had slowly creaked open. And then, something moved inside. A pale face, barely visible, peeked out for a moment before retreating into the darkness. I called the police immediately. They searched the apartment and found a small crawl space behind the closet, leading to a maintenance tunnel that ran through the building. Inside, they found a nest of blankets, food wrappers, and even some of my missing clothes. Someone had been living there, watching me. I moved out that same day. I never found out who it was or how long they'd been in there. But sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, feeling like I'm being watched. And I always check the closet. Story 3. The Smiling Man. I was walking home late one night after a shift at the diner. The streets were empty, the city quiet, except for the occasional rustling of leaves in the cold wind. I took a shortcut through an alley, trying to get home faster. That's when I saw him, a man standing at the end of the alley. He was tall, unnaturally thin, and dressed in an old-fashioned suit. His face was pale, and his mouth was stretched into a wide, unsettling grin. I hesitated. Something about him was wrong. Then he started walking toward me. His movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet being controlled by invisible strings, and he never stopped smiling. I turned around, heart pounding, and walked away quickly, but I could hear him behind me, his footsteps growing faster. I broke into a run, but so did he. I didn't look back. I just sprinted toward my apartment, my lungs burning. As I reached my building, I fumbled with my keys, desperate to get inside. I slammed the door shut, locking it behind me. My chest heaved as I pressed my back against the door, listening. Silence. I sighed in relief. Maybe he was just some weirdo. Maybe I was overreacting. Then a soft tapping sound echoed through the apartment. I turned my head slowly, dread filling my stomach. The sound was coming from my bedroom window. I live on the 7th floor, and outside my window was the smiling man. His grin was wider than before, his head tilted unnaturally to the side. He raised a hand and waved slowly. I screamed. When I finally got the courage to look again, he was gone. But I don't take shortcuts anymore, and I never walk alone at night. Story 4. The Man in the Closet. It started when Sarah moved into her new apartment. She had just broken up with her long-term boyfriend and wanted a fresh start. The apartment was small but cozy, located in an old building with creaky wooden floors and an eerie silence that settled in at night. A few nights in, Sarah began noticing strange occurrences. Her closet door, which she always left closed, would be slightly open in the morning. Small objects, like her keys or hairbrush, would go missing only to turn up in odd places. At first, she dismissed it as exhaustion or forgetfulness, until one night she woke up to the distinct sound of breathing. Frozen in fear, she lay motionless, her heart pounding. The sound was faint but steady, coming from the closet. Summoning her courage, she grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. She pointed it toward the slightly ajar door and saw something that nearly stopped her heart. Two glowing eyes staring back at her. She screamed and scrambled out of bed, knocking over a lamp as she ran for the front door. By the time the police arrived, the intruder was gone. They found a small, hidden door at the back of her closet, leading to a crawl space. Inside, a sleeping bag, food wrappers, and a notebook filled with disturbing entries about her daily activities. The man had been living in her closet for weeks, watching her sleep every night. Story 5. The Face in the Window. John was driving home late one night from a friend's house, taking a secluded road through a heavily wooded area. It was a route he had taken many times before, but something felt off that night. The air was thick with an uneasy silence, and the trees loomed over the road like dark, twisted figures. As he drove, his headlights caught something in the distance, a figure standing by the side of the road facing away from him. It was an old woman wearing a tattered nightgown, her long gray hair flowing down her back. He slowed down, debating whether to stop and help, but something about her presence sent a chill down his spine. As he passed her, she turned her head sharply and locked eyes with him. Her face was gaunt and expressionless, but her eyes, they were completely black, empty voids staring into his soul. Panicked, he stepped on the gas, trying to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Minutes later, he glanced at his rearview mirror and nearly crashed the car. The woman was in his back seat. Her lifeless face stared at him through the mirror, her mouth twisting into an unnatural grin. He swerved off the road and jumped out, expecting to see her still inside, but the back seat was empty. He never drove that road again.